Well, everyone, welcome back to another edition of To The Point podcast. Everybody's doing well. I've been away for a few days. I got to go see, my co-host of the Breaking Bad podcast, House, Seamus, on the weekend. That was a lot of fun. I got to watch some UFC, which I plan on diving into today. It was a really good sports weekend, and there's a lot happening this week on the podcast. A lot of different cool little different podcasts we're going to do this week. So before I get to what has happened over the last 3 to 4 days that I want to touch on today and leading into tomorrow and throughout the rest of the week, just some housekeeping here. So tomorrow, normal schedule, I'll do a podcast solo, talk about the action in the NHL, NBA, recap tonight's Monday Night Football, great game between Cardinals and Rams, followed by the Breaking Bad podcast per usual. Wednesday, I'm going to be doing a podcast with Seamus Fillmore, who's coming on again this week, Casey Ward, and I believe Sawyer Han is going to join me, and we're going to be talking about the Canada's Olympic team. And we had this conversation last spring, I believe, and we picked our roster, and we're going to revisit that conversation. We're going to update our rosters, to this point, seeing this season, seeing players really step up, play great. Is there any movement? Are there new blood that we didn't have before? So that's going to happen. Then on Thursday, I'm going to be doing another little roundtable podcast with Jason Bennett, a friend of mine who's been on the podcast before, and Creighton Fillmore, Sonapass, who's been on a number of times as well. The last time Creighton was on, we had a really, really important discussion about Kyle Beach. And I encourage anybody, if you haven't listened to that conversation, you can find that in the podcast platform. Head to our YouTube page and on Facebook. You can find that conversation. It was really powerful to me. Creighton was vulnerable. We talked about some Indigenous and First Nation issues revolving team names, which it was a great conversation. I was happy that Creighton was really vulnerable, and I appreciate when people do that. So we're going to be talking about, the three of us. It's going to be a funner conversation this time, even though the last one I took a lot out of it. We're going to rank our top 5 places to watch a sporting event. So what I mean by that is, you might say, okay, Wrigley, you want to go watch a Cubs game, or, you want to go watch Alabama and Tuscaloosa. It can range from any sport, soccer overseas, NHL in Vegas, whatever it is, whatever the game is. You can talk about the 2 teams that you want to see play at this certain locale, and we're going to have our top 5 ranking there. So we'll all 3 go through our lists. Again, I think that should be a lot of fun. It's something I just thought of this week because it's, with COVID and everything, travel's been put on hold, and I love to watch sporting events, and that's something that it's really been taken away from us for a long time. And finally, this is not about this week on the podcast, but after Christmas, on Boxing Day, I will be traveling to Edmonton, and I'm going to the World Junior Hockey Championship, which I'm stoked about. But so I'm going to be watching a lot of hockey over that 10-day period. However, I'm bringing my mic, my different materials. So in my little hotel room, I plan to record some podcasts, talk about the tournament, potentially do some live shows. You guys can jump in with some Q&As, bring your comments, whatever. But obviously it's going to be a little bit of a time difference, but obviously I'm going to be in the rink. So kind of give you guys the feel of what it's like to be there, the mood around Team Canada, players I really like watching live compared to on a television screen. So that's my great Christmas gift, is I get to go watch a lot of hockey, and I'm stoked for it. And even got better news with local New Brunswicker Luca Cormier making the roster. He was the last cut last year and makes the team this year. Congratulations, Luca. You've been having a fantastic year in Charlottetown, and great hockey family, and, go represent New Brunswick proud, and hopefully you can bring home a gold medal. But you're on the team regardless, and it's an experience you'll never forget, I'm sure. So congratulations to Luca and to his family, who are great. Like I said, great hockey family in the local area here. But so that's what's coming. There's going to be more podcasts next week, and I only leave the Boxing Day, but that's what's on the horizon for yours truly. And hopefully you guys can follow the journey along with me. I mean, the World Juniors, to me, it's the best tournament in the world. I had March Madness is real close. You'll have college football bowl games in there, which I'm going to try my damnedest to watch because I love college football too. So I plan to watch those games. You got NFL that's going to be going on. So a lot of moving parts, but we're going to try to do it all. And hopefully you guys can join in and have some fun as well. So so that's what's coming up here on To The Point, just some housekeeping and to keep you guys all up to date on what's coming up here. Well, normally I start with the NFL on a Monday, and I'm going to start with football, but I'm going to start with football in Canada. And last night it was the 108th Grey Cup live in Hamilton, Ontario, and what a game we got. A rematch of the 2019 Grey Cup. Before we talk about the game, kudos to the Canadian Football League, to the players, to the commissioner, Randy Ambrosi, and to the city of Hamilton, because there was no season in 2020. It looked like the league was teetering, that it potentially could go down the drain. And the league, the business, is not out of the woods yet. But last night, over 26,000 people in Hamilton, a sold-out crowd, the largest crowd ever at Tim Hortons Field. And the CFL is an important sport for Canada, in my opinion. It's been around forever. It's a staple of our culture. 108 Grey Cups. You remember the names Anthony Calvillo, Milt Stegall, Matt Dunnigan, Arlen Bruce. You just remember, and the sport will take a back burner. But I grew up watching the CFL because my grandfather loved it. And last night, it was a bittersweet night for me. And as you guys know, I don't root for teams, but I have a soft spot for the Tabbies in my heart because my grandfather was a Hamilton Tiger Cat fan. And, he was a Maple Leaf fan, so he never really got to see a lot of winners. He did have to root for the Patriots because I don't blame him after seeing, teams he loved lose quite often throughout his life. But I connected with Hamilton because it makes me think of him. And obviously him not being here anymore, it's sad, but it's also, for me, it's also a joyous thing because watching them play, I think of, sitting on his couch and learning the game and him talking to me about the CFL and why he enjoys it. And, teaching me that, okay, it's not the NFL, but it still holds a lot of intrinsic value, and that it's a key sport of Canada. I equate the CFL to curling in this country. Curling is big. At the Olympics, it's one of the biggest sports. To me, the Canadian Football League is as important as curling, as hockey. Playing U sports in this country, you might not get to the NFL. Obviously, guys like Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, who played at McGill, got to the Kansas City Chiefs and won a Super Bowl. You see Chase Claypool, Canadian, Chuba Hubbard. But a lot of guys, that's not going to be their journey. And Canadians can play in this league. And then you see, a guy like last night for the Tabbies, Jeremiah Mazzoli comes off the bench when Dane Evans injures his neck. Jeremiah Mazzoli was once drafted in the NFL. He was once played for the Oregon Ducks. on one of the most high profile offenses in that time. And you just see great, Bo Levi Mitchell playing at Western Kentucky. Guys get to create a legacy in this country. Zach Collaros, who won most outstanding player last night, is now a 2-time Grey Cup champion. Adam Bighill, who went and played a number of years in the NFL, came back to Winnipeg and has won back-to-back Grey Cups. The city of Winnipeg is breeding champions. This year, it was one of the most dominant seasons in the history of the CFL. And yet, last night, I thought before the game Hamilton was going to win. I just had this feeling. And they should have. They gagged the game away. Credit to that Winnipeg defense for starting to get some pressure. Willie Jefferson, Jackson Jeffcoat did their job. Don Jackson, who looked like he was going to be the most outstanding player in the first half with close to over 100 all-purpose yards, was really a non-factor. They took him out of the game, and up 12 points with 11 minutes to go. It was not enough. Winnipeg came all the way back, tied it up. We go to overtime. They get a touchdown and a 2-point conversion, and Kyle Wilson seals the game with an interception. And through, I don't listen to the sound, but it looked like a good halftime show, a great crowd, a fantastic game. This is what keeps the sport alive. People caring, a good product. It's like anything. People aren't going to buy it if they don't think it's worth what you're selling. Last night was an example of what the CFL brings to the table, of what that league offers to its fans, to its viewership. And kudos to the league for coming back, for getting to a place where they can get back, where they can play games. And also credit to Winnipeg, and also to Hamilton. You've lost a lot of Grey Cups. I haven't seen one in a long time. I remember when I was a kid, I rooted for the Argos because I wanted to be different than my grandfather, because it was fun rooting against his team. That he loved the Patriots. As a kid, I hated the Patriots. I was a Dolphins fan. I've dropped my allegiance since. I kind of wish I did earlier. Watching sports with him might have been a bit more fun, a bit more enjoyable for the both of us. Seeing him celebrate my face when Tom Brady throws another touchdown pass to Randy Moss. But it's just that league has a good feeling to me. It provides good memories, and so not to get too sappy today, but I just want to share that part of my life with you guys. It's a special league to me. I never want it to go away because it keeps me connected to my personal hero. So thanks. Enough for the sappy crap. I don't want to do that all day. But yesterday was a interesting day in the National Football League. As I look through these games, I got a couple of bullet points. Obviously, the Buffalo Bills I could rail on. I could rail on Urban Meyer, which I will in a minute here. I could talk about the Bucs, how I think they're going to win the Super Bowl despite giving up a big lead yesterday. Cleveland Browns just want to lose games. Why is Baker Mayfield playing? I could talk about all that. But to me, yesterday was about just heart. And not just heart, but desire. And, we saw a couple different things this week. And I'm going to correlate it to games. And normally I don't think there's a direct correlation or a connection. But prior to yesterday's game, the Washington football team had won 4 straight. They're playing the Dallas Cowboys. And Dallas beat New Orleans, but New Orleans was beat up. Dallas has looked okay over the last number of games. And yet Mike McCarthy told the press before the game that he was guaranteeing a victory. Now, that's never a smart move to make in sports, but kudos to him. He believed in his team. Well, then there's the other side of the coin, where the Las Vegas Raiders, prior to kickoff yesterday at Arrowhead Stadium, the entire team went and stood in the middle of the field. And basically, we're calling out the Chiefs saying, we're going to hunt you down today. Well, you're seeing 2 different motivations and how I think both of them worked yesterday. The Dallas Cowboys led 24-0 at halftime. And they didn't play that good on offense. Dak Prescott threw an ugly interception. But what do I like so much about teams that win? Run the football. Well, funny enough, neither of these teams run the football that well, although we did see the Chiefs run it more yesterday. But they play good defense. You can give me a really good offense. I'll take a great defense over a good offense any day of the week. Defense still wins championships in the NFL. And you could argue, okay, well, the Kansas City Chiefs didn't win the Super Bowl last year because they had a porous offensive line. Fair. But you could also look and say the Kansas City Chiefs didn't win the Super Bowl last year because that Tampa Bay Bucs defense was legit. It was because Shaq Barrett, who had a sack and a half yesterday in the first quarter, was a man on a mission. It's because Jason Pierre-Paul turned back into the Pro Bowler that he was in New York. It was because Antoine Winfield Jr., a rookie, was playing safety like Ed Reed in his prime. Well, we look at both of these teams. Let's start with Dallas. I've been pushing back this thought for weeks because I'm like, well, no, there's no way Micah Parsons can win Defensive Player of the Year. He's obviously going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. That's a no-brainer. He can't win Defensive Player of the Year. The season ended right now. I think he's winning it. And I think I pushed back on this thought because, well, the only rookie to ever win Defensive Player of the Year in their rookie season was Lawrence Taylor. Lawrence Taylor, to me, is the best football player that's ever lived. Better than Tom Brady. Better than Jerry Rice. Lawrence Taylor changed the game. The left tackle became the second highest paid position in the NFL because Lawrence Taylor snapped Joe Theismann's leg in half. And I look at it and say, well, Mike is really good. And yes, they play the same position, linebacker. But he can't be as good as Lawrence Taylor, and he isn't. It's a different game. It's not as physical as it once was. But you can't argue what Micah Parsons is doing. 13 sacks on the year. Over 15 tackles for losses. He has been a linebacker turned D-end because it does not matter who he's matched up against. And I still think we got to see when teams start to double team Micah Parsons, how effective is he? People often say, well, Aaron Donald's not that good of a player. Well, he's getting double, triple teamed every snap, which opens up holes for guys like Leonard Floyd to come across the edge, for guys like Von Miller, for past teammates to have really good seasons while playing with Aaron Donald. But you look at that Dallas defense. Number 11, Micah Parsons, stud. Randy Gregory, who's a really good story, a guy who's been suspended 3 times for substance abuse, who has admitted that he was an addict to, drugs of some kind, likely cocaine. And yet he's battled through all that. He's been reinstated, and every day is a battle for him. But he's back playing. Yesterday on a third down, Taylor Heineke throws the ball up. Gregory gets a paw on it and then makes the play midair to intercept it. Prior to his injury, he missed a couple weeks. He was on a collision course to be a Pro Bowler this year alongside Micah Parsons. DeMarcus Lawrence is back playing at a very high level. Trayvon Diggs at the corner position is very good. You can look at their secondary, and it's a bit porous, but I look at this Dallas defense, and the game got close late with Heineke making some plays, them running the football, but I still look at this Dallas defense. It's bend but don't break. We might, and that was New England back in the day. They would give up yardage every game, but you got to that red zone, you're getting 3, not 7. And a lot of games, that's all it counts. And Dallas, like Kansas City, I'm going to make this correlation here in a minute. Dallas has an offense that should be way more explosive. Dak Prescott has played average to below average last number of weeks. He makes $75 million this year, most in the history of pro football. And he turns the ball over too much. He overthrows people. He underthrows people. But I think Dak is a very, very good quarterback. And you can find that synchronicity where you look and say, I have CeeDee Lamb over here. I put him in the slot personally, but to each their own. I'm not an offensive coordinator. Just playing one on this podcast. And then on either side, you have Amari Cooper, a multiple prime Pro Bowler, maybe the best route runner in the NFL. I know I say that a lot, but he's good. And you have Michael Gallup, who's just a burner, but he can make tough catches. He's got great footwork. Then you also have Dalton Schultz. You've got weapons galore. So with that great defense, can you find some connection? Can you find some confidence in these last 4 weeks that will leave you excited, that will push you towards the playoffs with some momentum, with positive emotions? I think they have a chance to do that because they got Washington again, a banged up defense. They play the Giants this coming weekend. Well, see what Justin Herbert did to the Giants yesterday? Dak Prescott can do that. Justin Herbert was out Keenan Allen yesterday, his best receiver. And division game after division game. But they have the opportunity to do it, to be a team that has a ton of momentum. They should win. They have Arizona left on their schedule. That's the only game where they shouldn't be the favorite. Other than that, a division game, they should win every one. Period. So that brings me to Kansas City. And just for the record, I think Kansas City is better than Dallas, but I do think Dallas has the opportunity to be in the NFC Championship game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They can go on a run here and avoid each other. They could play in that game. And I really do mean that. But Kansas City, they won their 6th straight yesterday. And Dallas had, wanted to play for their coach. They got a big lead early. They held on and won. Well, Vegas, who deserves no praise, who shouldn't feel cavalier, who fired their coach this year, who they're just Vegas. It doesn't matter if they're in Vegas, they're in Oakland. They're Jekyll and Hyde. They find ways to lose games. So you stand in the middle of the field and you're all high and mighty and you feel good. We're the Las Vegas Raiders and we're coming at you. Well, by halftime, it was 35-3. 35-3. Chiefs, not Vegas. Yeah, Chiefs. Yeah, just for the record. And not only that, in the Dallas game, they forced 2 first-half turnovers. Well, Kansas City did one better. They forced 3 turnovers, and those led to 3 touchdowns. That is how you win football games. Your best offense is your defense. 2 turnovers forced by the Honey Badger. An interception and a forced fumble recovered by him. He's their best defensive player. He said, it's going to come to me. I'm eventually going to get an interception. I'm going to start to take the ball away. Well, yesterday was his day. He finally got a break. He's a fantastic player. Good to see him have some success. But what have we seen from the Chiefs? Well, their defense struggled early, and Mahomes couldn't throw the ball. Yesterday was a tour de force because they love to play Vegas. They put up over 40 both games this year. But at the same time, what do we see in the, like I said, defense, but also Patrick Mahomes looked the most comfortable he's been since probably week 1. That's a positive sign to me. You win 48-9. Mahomes goes 20 for 24, 258, 2 scores. That's a damn good day. And then you also have Derek Gore had a 51-yard touchdown run. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 2 touchdowns on the ground. It wasn't just about the pass game. Tyreek Hill had a 38-yard pass. Mecole Hardman had a 44-yarder. Byron Pringle had a 28-yard reception. It wasn't dink and doink, but it worked. He didn't force it. Chiefs didn't turn the ball over yesterday. That's a great game. And again, I look at these 2 teams and I do think, the AFC is an easier path because Tennessee wins against Jacksonville yesterday. And good for you. You win 20-0. Jacksonville is 2-10. They stink. But a win's a win. Yeah, they might be 2-11 now. Either way, they're terrible. Jacksonville. Tennessee's 9-4, same record as Kansas City. But can they get Derrick Henry back? They need Derrick Henry back to have a legitimate shot at winning a Super Bowl this year, which is unclear if they're going to have him back and if he's going to be healthy enough to really make an impact for that football team. New England, I think, is right there with Kansas City. Right now, both teams are on even playing field with me. It's obviously a battle to get that number 1 seed. Tennessee's right there too. But you look, Baltimore. I don't trust Baltimore. We'll get into Baltimore in a minute. Do I trust the Chargers? No. I mean, the Chargers get a big win yesterday, but I don't trust them because they're the Chargers. I mean, they got 4 games left. They still have to make the playoffs to me. They still have to prove that they can because for years it was Phillip Rivers. You got a near 500 record. You look like you're chugging along, and in the last 4 games of the season, you blow it. And wouldn't put it past me to see that happen with the Chargers this year, even with Phillip Rivers and Anthony Lynn still not being there. Cincinnati should be the first seed in the AFC North. That's another topic I'm going to get to in just a minute here. But Buffalo, can keep going through these teams. The AFC is wide open. It's a 2-horse race right now to me. It's Kansas City and it's New England. But you look at Kansas City and say, well, they got a really good defense. So does New England. They both force turnovers. Check. Corner play, I would give to New England. When it comes to pass rushing, Chiefs are improving. Frank Clark yesterday to me looked like he was back to being Frank Clark. I'm not saying Seattle Frank Clark, Legion of Boom days, but coming across the edges, playing against Alex Leatherwood, a first-round pick from the University of Alabama, he looked good yesterday. Chris Jones coming from the inside has been a game record. I think that's a close one, but I love Matthew Judon. He's been unreal. Kyle Van Noy has made an impact in the defense. So I think that's close. Safety position, I love Matthew and Adrian Phillips have both been playing at a Pro Bowl level this year. So then I look at it, offensive weapons. And even though Travis Kelce and Mahomes haven't had a great connection the past, really this whole year, I like Kelce in playoff games because he's been there, done that. Tyreek Hill, been there, done that, Super Bowl champion. And then you compare, you have Mahomes and Mac Jones. And Mahomes has never, he's played in his years as a starter, his worst season has gotten to an AFC championship game. 2 Super Bowls, he's won 1. Mac Jones has not taken a playoff snap. So I give the edge to Kansas City just based on experience. They've been through a lot of these battles where Mac Jones, yes, he's played national championship games, but that's a different arena than getting to the NFL playoffs. So does that mean that it's guaranteed that they won't win? No, I think New England's got a puncher's chance for sure. But I think they're gonna have to really. They need New England getting the bye is far more important than Kansas City at this point in the season. But I look at Kansas City, I look at Dallas, New England. It's less about the quarterback play. It's more about defenses putting quarterbacks in a position to have short fields to be able to score touchdowns. And the teams that do that the best are winning right now. They're winning a lot. So we'll see how this progresses. But I mentioned the Chargers. They won a big game. They crushed the New York Giants yesterday, to nobody's surprise. But their offense is starting to evolve. It was really stagnant over the first couple weeks where Herbert was just checking it down and they run the ball some. I still think they need to improve their running game. They got Eckler and Justin Jackson and Kelly. But, Herbert goes 23 for 31, 275, 3 scores yesterday, no turnovers. And what I like about this offense, they are taking shots downfield. Jarius Guyton caught a 59-yard touchdown. Palmer had a 36-yarder. Mike Williams, 25-yard reception. So they're taking shots down the field, and they look confident. But what we got now, Chargers hope to get Keenan Allen back, a few defensive players. They play the Chiefs on Thursday Night Football. And the interesting thing here is the Chargers beat the Chiefs this year. However, they are 8-5, Kansas City 9-4. So if they can win this game, they vault into first place in the AFC West and they control their destiny. They won the first game. That's the big thing to remember. They won the first meeting and it's in LA. They won at Arrowhead. So can they do it twice? That would turn the Chargers from, well, we think they're a good team, to put them directly on the map, to say, you know what, this team is legit. This team is a threat. They can go potentially represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. This Thursday, that win would do it. And to see Herbert outgun Patrick Mahomes, and to see Mike Williams, Jarius Guyton, this offense continue to click under Joe Lombardi would be really, really impressive. So we'll see what happens. But I'm looking forward to that Thursday night. That's an awesome game on Thursday night with huge division stakes on the line. Last Monday night, Bills Patriots, awesome game. Tonight, Arizona versus LA, awesome game. And Thursday, you got Chiefs Chargers, again, an awesome game. So I could get to Urban Meyer, but I'm not going to yet. Let's go to the AFC North. And I'm going to start with Cincinnati because it is infuriating to me when teams lose games just out of pure stupidity. And Cincinnati yesterday loses to San Francisco. San Francisco's a good team, don't get me wrong. But again, they're not world beaters. Jimmy G is not as good a quarterback as Joe Burrow is. Jonathan Hasty or Jeff Wilson Jr. are not as good as running backs as Joe Mixon. Jamar Chase, you could argue, is a better receiver than anybody on the San Francisco roster, even though I think Deebo Samuel is the most important player on that offense. But yet yesterday, Cincinnati, 2 muff punts, both recovered by San Francisco. Well, they actually had 3 muff punts. One, they fell on the ball, so they kept it. So 3 muff punts yesterday. 2 that they lost, and that was 10 points. That's the ball game when it all boils down. But not only that, the game, they lose ultimately in overtime. But it's early in the second quarter. They get a stop on third down. Big play. They're excited. And Von Bell, the former New Orleans Saint, gets the stop, makes a play, and then points in the player's face. Well, as you guys know, I hate the taunting rule. But when you point in a guy's face, when you get in his face and directly do it with the ref a foot away, I can't defend you. When you celebrate a sack and you're not looking at the guy, that's not taunting to me. That's just you're celebrating, which I'm fine with. But when you directly get in a guy's face and you point and you're mocking him, that's taunting. That's the rule. And Von Bell, you were off the field. The very next play, it's a 15-yard unsportsmanlike conduct. Next play, touchdown. So it was going to be 6 points off turnovers on 2 turnovers. It jumped to 10. You lose the game by 4. That's the ball game. 2 muff punts, and a stupid penalty. And it didn't matter that Joe Burrow had great theatrics at the end of the game on a 2-minute drill, goes down the field like a surgical physician, carving people up, and got a touchdown to send the game over. It didn't matter because Von Bell, because their kick returners couldn't get their heads out of their ass. And what would frustrate me so much if I'm Zach Taylor, Cincinnati's the best team in this division. They're better than Baltimore. Joe Burrow is going to be a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson. But you look at Baltimore. They are beaten to hell. Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards. Anthony Averett got banged up yesterday, who's a backup corner. They were playing nobodies yesterday. Chuck Clark was out. They're relying on Tavon Young, the veteran, to play down in, down out. It just wasn't happening. And Lamar in that offense, it's Mark Andrews or bust. He had 11 catches yesterday, but Hollywood Brown, Rashad Bateman, it's not enough. And not only that, they're banged up to hell on defense. First play of the second quarter, Lamar rolls his ankle. He left the game, and they were down big at halftime as well, 24-6. They come all the way back to 24-22, but Cleveland hangs on. And Tyler Huntley deserves a ton of credit for not giving up, coming in, cold off the bench and balling out. But if I'm Cincinnati and I'm looking at this division, you've beaten Pittsburgh twice. For you, that's that's impressive. And you sit at 7-6, and you are 9th in the postseason race. You're behind Baltimore right now. I would be pulling my hair out. Cleveland's ahead of you because they beat you head to head. And it's just stupidity. Joe Burrow is a great quarterback. Jamar Chase had a game yesterday. He had 2 touchdowns. Looked like the stud rookie that he is after having a few slow weeks. But egos and just lack of awareness can cost you football games in this league. Turnovers kill you. It's the age-old thing. Don't turn the ball over. You have a good chance of winning the game. Cincinnati didn't. Pornstar Jimmy made enough plays to win the game. They got Deebo Samuel back. He had a rushing touchdown. Brandon Ayuk is starting to find his way in the pass game. George Kittle, just huge catch after huge catch. The guy's an absolute stud. And San Francisco stays in that playoff race with a big win. But you look, I said Cincinnati should be leading this division. Baltimore's beat to hell. Who knows if Lamar's going to play this week? They got Green Bay at home on Sunday. Not exactly an easy game, even with Lamar Jackson, after seeing what Aaron Rodgers did to that poor Bears defense last night. But then you have Cleveland, who's now 7-6 as well. They're up 24-6 at the half. They actually look like they're the Cleveland Browns, like I thought they beat at the beginning of the season. They're running the football. They're using the play action. They got their screen game going with tight end screens. Austin Hooper making catches. Jarvis Landry, running his slants over the middle. This offense was the Cleveland Browns offense that you want to see if they're going to be winning games. But the second half is just drop pass, Baker overthrowing a guy. Run game, offensive line is beat up. No Jack Conklin on the right side. You can't get anything. And they just fell asleep. And before you know it, it's 24-22. And then not only that, they can't recover an onside kick. So Baltimore gets the ball back with a chance to win. Luckily enough, Myles Garrett makes a play on fourth down. He also had a forced fumble, strip sack that led to a touchdown for a house call. But I mean, this division, I don't know who is going to win this division. Because like I said, we just look at schedule, none of them have an easy schedule coming down the stretch here. But somebody has to win the division. That's a fact. So Cleveland's got Vegas on Saturday. Well, Vegas has fallen off a cliff. You got to win that game if you're Cleveland. You're at home. That's a must win. Steelers have the Titans. Steelers are still in this, even though I don't think they really are. Cincinnati goes to Denver. Not an easy place to play. Baltimore has the Packers. Cleveland then goes to Green Bay on Christmas. Again, not an easy game. Ravens play the Bengals, so they play each other there. Steelers go to Kansas City. So Steelers have the toughest schedule remaining of anybody in the NFL. That's just based on data. Chiefs then play the Bengals. You have Cincinnati. Browns play the Steelers, and Cincinnati has the Chiefs, like I just said. Baltimore, where are you? Baltimore plays the Rams. Tough schedule. And then they finished. Browns played the Bengals last week of the season. You got Ravens, Steelers to finish the season. All those schedules are murderer's row, but somebody has to win this division. And I don't know who's going to be yet. Denver 7-6, the same record as the Cincinnati Bengals. They could win this weekend. Denver crushed Detroit yesterday. You could say it was for Demaryius Thomas, who passed away suddenly on Friday. But they got Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. They have a two-headed monster at running back. They find ways to be effective in games. And who knows how that's going to go. But this AFC North is a complete clusterfuck. Because there's no great, or even right now, good team in it. Cincinnati's stupid. They're young and they're stupid. Cleveland, you have a game plan that's got you a 24-6 lead in the first half, and you don't continue to do that. You get no points in the second half against a banged up defense, and you nearly lose the game because you can't make a special teams, can't jump on the football. That's just bad team to me. Baker Mayfield didn't play well yesterday. And Baltimore's beat the hell. And again, they're stupid too. But somebody will win this division. But I thought before, we will see two of these teams make the playoffs. I'm not so sure anymore. Because I think the Chargers, they're going to make the playoffs this year. Again, I just talked about earlier how you shouldn't trust the Chargers, but I think they will make the playoffs this year. Buffalo, who the hell knows? But I think Buffalo can find enough in the tank to make it. And I believe Indianapolis is going to make the playoffs. Indianapolis coming up, they got the Patriots. That's not an easy game for sure. Then they go to the Cardinals. Not an easy game. They play the Raiders, and they finish against, I believe, the Jags. So two really tough games, and then an easier set of games coming up for them. But the AFC wildcard will be a battle, and it's also one team is going to host the playoff game. It's just going to figure out who can right the ship here and really start to show that they're a good football team here in the AFC North. I'm going to get to Tampa Bay in a minute. I got to touch on Urban Meyer. And it's rare that you want to talk about a 2-11 football team. And Jacksonville, they had the number 1 pick in the draft. They took Trevor Lawrence. So you know that they're going to be a terrible team. They're right there with Houston, who are both 2-11 in the same division. They play each other this weekend. Those tickets should be just jumping off StubHub and Ticketmaster. But so you know your team's going to be bad. And they're going through a transition where Doug Marrone was there for a long time. He got that team to an AFC Championship game with Blake Bortles at quarterback. They had a great defense, but it was time for a change. No problem. But they go out and they hire Urban Meyer. And if I was a pro Urban Meyer guy, I couldn't make this take because it'd be hypocritical. But I remember talking about it when they hired him. I said, this was a stupid move. You hire a guy who's a college coach, never coached the NFL, who's got a track record of being a really shitty human being. He tried to hire a strength coach who's openly racist on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Good start. Just got there. He's given a long-term deal by Shad Khan because Shad Khan is a guy who makes a lot of money and he wants his team to be relevant. He wants his team to be somewhat competitive. Well, you can accept being bad. And there's moments this year where, yes, he had the moment where he was played on a Thursday night, then goes to Ohio State. There's a woman dancing on his lap. That wasn't good. But then he kind of overcame that. They go to London and they beat Miami, which even looks like an even more impressive win as they win, as they continue to win week by week. And they beat Buffalo 9-6. But now leaks are coming out that Urban Meyer is really being an asshole. He's getting into confrontations with players. Marvin Jones Jr. left the facility and had to be convinced to return by teammates because he couldn't put up with Urban Meyer anymore. That James Robinson was benched a week ago, who I believe is their best offensive player at running back. And Trevor Lawrence, who's a rookie, had to come out to the media this week and say, I don't really know what's going on. I don't really get a say in personnel. James is one of our best players. I wish he was on the field. That's a direct quote, by the way. That's basically saying, Urban, when I go out there, I want that running back. Yes, he had fumbled in back-to-back weeks, but prior to those 2 fumbles, he had not fumbled in his entire NFL career. Not a bad track record. And then it's also, it's being reported that Urban has referred to his assistant coaches as quote unquote losers and, just quitters. So it sounds like an inferno of negativity in Jacksonville. And Urban Meyer, in his college days, it always started off well. And he'd usually get you a national championship. And then the potpourri of doo-doo would start pouring in. And the negativity would overcome we won a national championship 3 years ago. We have a really good program here at Florida, here at Utah, here at the Ohio State. And for some reason or another, he left those programs. So, to me, there's one solution here. And it's if Shad Khan has the balls and has the wherewithal and the common sense to admit, I made a mistake. And myself, I'm sure you listening, pundits across the world, Dan Orlovsky, who I like to listen to, pointed out from day one, this was a stupid hire. This was a desperate hire. This was a bad organization reaching out to a guy who was working at Fox, doing a decent job commentating, being a broadcaster, saying, you've never done this in the NFL, but you know what? You were successful in college. Come do this. We'll give you a lot of money. Well, maybe a guy with a cleaner track record, maybe the guy that it was talked about at Ohio State, how guys were starting just to rebel against him there. You talk about grown men in the NFL are just going to put up with the BS that he makes you go through. There's a reason these old school type coaches, they aren't having it anymore. Mike Babcock's not hired in the NHL. Tortorella is not on the bench. Daryl Sutter is still very old school, but I do think he's changed a bit. There's a reason he won in LA. It wasn't because he was such an asshole, because Drew Doughty was on that team. And let me tell you, Drew Doughty's not putting up with that day in, day out. So Shad Khan, nobody likes to admit they're wrong, especially a billionaire. But you want Trevor Lawrence to work out. You want free agents to at least say, I might consider Jacksonville because they have Trevor Lawrence, the first overall pick in the draft. Boy wonder, good looking guy, good hair, got a big arm. Well, even if they are maybe considering that, they're not going to if Urban Meyer is your head coach. Hiring a college coach is not necessarily a bad thing. I've been talking about, hires in the NHL where, Vancouver Canucks had Jim Rutherford. I think they should hire Steve Stamkos as their GM because they have a president who has all kinds of experience. You don't need a GM with a ton if you have the president with 40 plus years of experience. Well, to me, this has been a disaster. The guy just looks like an asshole on the sideline. You see the way him and Mike Vrabel interacted yesterday. Vrabel was on his staff at the Ohio State. They barely acknowledged each other. He looks miserable out there. Shad Khan, maybe you can hope that Urban Meyer will resign after this year, that he hates the job, that he doesn't want to do it anymore. That's what you got to hope, because then you don't got to pay him. But this isn't about money. It's about the long-term health and future of your franchise. And Urban Meyer cannot be a part of that, because part of building a strong, viable franchise is public relations. What I mean by that is you need to at least have the presentation to free agents, to draft picks, that, coming to Jacksonville is not such a bad thing. Well, you got your quarterback. Say you look at this draft, and they're going to be drafting in the top 3. What if Kyle Hamilton is their pick? And he says, I have one career. I'm not going to let Jacksonville ruin it. And I know people hate that opinion, but you do have one career. If you don't want to go somewhere because you think it could really affect you long-term and you're not going to have the success that you envision, more power to you. I think you put a target on your back and you really have to perform at your next locale. But I don't begrudge anyone for doing that, because it's your life. It's your future. It's not about Rick from accounting. It's not about your Uncle Gary, who really liked the sun in Jacksonville. It's about yourself. It's about what's going to make you happy, what's going to make you successful, what is the most optimal way for you to achieve success in your profession. And I could see kids saying, I'm not going to Jacksonville. I could see more and more kids saying, I'm not going to Detroit. It's a gong show up there. But this is the crazy thing. Detroit is more attractive right now than Jacksonville. It's honestly the truth. Dan Campbell at least gives a shit. He's biting off kneecaps and, he's crying sometimes. It's a bit much, but you can tell that his players want to go through a wall for him. They'll do anything for Dan Campbell. Nobody's going through for a wall for Urban Meyer. They'll throw him through a wall, but they care about Dan Campbell in Detroit. I think you could ask guys this year, draft picks, say, you know what? It was a tough year, but Dan really, he improved our team. He made us believe. We fought hard week in, week out. We nearly beat Baltimore in week 4 on a 66-yard field goal. We battled in every game, even though we knew our roster was really devoid of talent. People in Jacksonville will be like, it sucks here. We got we have a commie head coach who doesn't let us do anything. He berates us. He doesn't put the best players on the field, so it's hard for me to succeed. And not only Shad Khan, Urban Meyer's head coach is important. Your franchise quarterback is more important. Bring in an offensive mind that can help develop Trevor Lawrence. Period. End of story. Again, Jacksonville is not normally a topic because they are 2-11. They're more a topic when we get to draft time. But if Urban Meyer is the head coach by April, when we get to the draft, Shad Khan has balls the size of rat because he needs to pull the trigger here. Let the season play out, whatever. You're going to lose every game anyway. Maybe it'll be Houston this week. After that, you're done. But he cannot be the overseer down the line here. He is not the person to do it. And don't put yourself in a position where Urban Meyer is calling the shots. Period. So that's my rant about Jacksonville, but they need to change this before it festers and before it's a full-blown raging fire that they cannot put out in Jacksonville. It's bad when people say, I'd rather spend my winter in Detroit than Jacksonville. Just think about that for a minute. Who the hell? Nobody wants to go to Detroit in summer. Nobody wants to go to Detroit any time of the year. I'd move to Jacksonville tomorrow in a heartbeat. Are you kidding? Sun, heat, 365. Check. Well, I go to Detroit. I'm getting coached by Dan Campbell, not that, pardon my French, asshole Urban Meyer. I said at the beginning of this podcast that I believe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to win the Super Bowl. I've been saying that for a number of weeks. And yesterday's game would not really point, in that favor and say, well, the Bucs look like the team that's just steamrolling towards the Super Bowl. However, yesterday the Bills put up a great fight. After being down a ton early, they battled back. Josh Allen running the football effectively, just being the human battering ram that he is, picking up first downs, finding, Stephon Diggs, making plays when he needs to make them. Defense coming up big on a fourth down stop. So they made plays. The pass rush started to finally get to Tom Brady. But I go through that and say the defense had their problems. Josh Allen made some big plays. But we get to overtime. And Buffalo wins the coin toss. They get the ball first. What did the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense do? 3-0. 3-0. 3rd and 4. Buffalo, I think they had the ball at their own 32. Incomplete pass. They decide to punt. Now, here's the thing. And I'd have this opinion if it was a 3rd and 4 at your own 1-yard line. If you are playing Tom Brady-led team in an overtime and you punt the ball back to him, you are going to lose, period. That's just Tom Brady. The Patriots won all those games. When you punted the ball back to them with a 2-minute warning, they're going to get a touchdown or get the field goal. It happened for 20 years. And I look at Sean McDermott first and say, I get it. Your defense had played a really good second half, but it doesn't matter when you get to overtime because Tom Brady's going to find that spark, find that play to win the game. So my first beef is with Buffalo. Go for it. Who gives a shit if Tampa gets the ball at your 32? I don't care if they're pinned. They are going to score on the next possession. That's just what they do. What happens? They run double crosses. Beautiful play. Perriman and Godwin, each going. Brashad Perriman, who has been cut by 2 different teams this year, I might add, is crossing. It's a perfectly ran route because they both run. So it's a rub route where they both have their own little pick, so to speak. But Perriman's running to the right. He beats Juwan Johnson to the football. Johnson tries to make a tackle, but the defense either too far to the middle and too far to the left. Perriman breaks tackle. He's house call, touchdown in overtime. So the Bucs had a massive lead. You look at them. Mike Evans made a great touchdown play. Leonard Fournette looks fantastic. Chris Godwin is catching 8 to 9 passes a game, getting he's over 1,000 yards on the season. He's going back to the Pro Bowl this year. And yes, did they give up a lead, but they still won the game. The Bills are a tough opponent. They are 7-6 and they're in trouble because Josh Allen is beat up. He left the game in a walking boot. They need Josh Allen to be healthy. But I still look at Tampa and say, I saw signs yesterday. Shaq Barrett had a sack and a half in the first quarter. Vita Vea is healthy. He's in that middle of the defense. He's impossible to block. In that run game, he stuffs it. They're getting Carlton Davis back. The corner. Jamel Dean is back at corner. Richard Sherman is being converted to safety. He gets an interception yesterday. I love their back end of their defense. Jason Pierre-Paul can still play. Ndamukong Suh is playing at a high level. This defense is the nucleus of a Super Bowl winning defense is still here. And that is why I think Green Bay was in a similar position yesterday. Green Bay won a game where Chicago came out and punched them in the mouth early. Jakeem Grant, who they acquired earlier in the season via trade from the Miami Dolphins, Justin Fields has a push pass as he's moving on an end around jet sweep. He catches the football. They get some really good blocks, Cole Kmet and Jason Peters, and Jakeem Grant goes to the house. Then later in the half, they kick a punt. He's at his own 5, moving around. They get some great blocks to the right side on the outside. He returns the punt 97 yards for a touchdown. So they get punched in the mouth by Jakeem Grant just being a stud early. But what does Aaron Rodgers do like Tom Brady? And it's different because they were down and they had to rally. But Aaron Rodgers is not fazed. He owns the Chicago Bears. He said that earlier in the season. Well, last night, you're at home. You feel comfortable. The Bears defense is all cocky. Robert Quinn got a sack early in the game, did his little, championship little move. Well, Aaron Rodgers, after that, had scored touchdowns on 5 straight possessions. He went 29 for 37, 341, 4 touchdowns. That's surgical. A.J. Dillon ran 15 times for 71 yards. Aaron Jones only ran 5 times for 35. But Devontae Adams, 10 catches, $121, 2 touchdowns. Alan Lazard, 6 for 75, 1 score. Aaron Jones, and he's got Mercedes Lewis and DeGuara, the tight ends, also contributing. But he's just too damn good. The Bears had put up 30 points last night, but they give up 45. Justin Fields threw 2 interceptions. I like some of what Justin Fields did last night. He ran the ball 9 times for 74. That's a huge part of his game. And I really don't think we'll know if Justin Fields can be a good quarterback in the NFL until Matt Nagy is fired. That's when we'll know. But you see 2 teams, Bucks 10-3, Packers 10-3. We'll know that yesterday was 2 really impressive wins for me because they showed what they can do. That they got punched in the mouth at 2 different points in the game. Buffalo had all the momentum going into overtime. Buffalo won the coin toss, but yet their defense made a stop. And then Tom Brady threw the walk-off touchdown pass to a guy that wasn't on the roster 2 weeks prior. That's impressive stuff. Green Bay is without offensive linemen. They're without, David Bakhtiari. They're without, Billy Turner last night. And they win the game. The battered offensive line, they still find ways to win. So, to me, you got Arizona, who's still in first. They're first in the NFC. They play Los Angeles tonight. But I look at the other 2 teams, Tampa and Green Bay, as they battle for home field. The rest of the seasons, Tampa Bay has New Orleans this week on Sunday Night Football. That's a revenge game. Packers play the Ravens. I expect both teams to win this week. So Green Bay owns the tiebreaker. Green Bay then hosts Cleveland on Christmas. I expect Green Bay at home. I think Green Bay will win that game. The Bucks play at the Panthers. Cam Newton has never lost to Tom Brady in his career as a starter. I don't even know if Cam Newton will be starting that game because he's been benched the last 2 starts he's had. So I expect both teams to win. Then we have Packers play the Vikings on Sunday Night Football in the second last week of the season. Well, Vikings beat the Packers the first time. The Vikings, that'll be a desperate game for them. But at Lambeau, I think it'll be close, but I give the edge The Bucs play the Jets. So they'll win by 40. And they finish their season. The Bucs have the Panthers again, and the Green Bay Packers play the Detroit Lions. So they both have pretty easy schedules down the stretch. I'd say that Green Bay's is slightly tougher because that Minnesota game is in there. Cleveland is a tougher opponent than Atlanta or New Orleans. But that's the interesting thing. And also in the NFC, Cardinals are 10-2. Huge game tonight, the second meeting between them and the Rams this year. They won the first matchup easily in Los Angeles. And just breaking news right now, the Rams are going to be without Jalen Ramsey, their starting corner. I think the best corner in the NFL. He'd be going up against DeAndre Hopkins tonight. So no Jalen. He's kept DeAndre Hopkins very ordinary over the course of his career when they match up. The last meeting, DeAndre Hopkins only had 3 catches for 36 yards. That's a very, very good day. He's not playing tonight. So they're going to have to figure out a way to cover DeAndre Hopkins while leaving Christian Kirk, AJ Green, and they get Chase Edmonds back tonight and James Conner at running back. Kyler's healthy. So that hurts. And no Tyler Higbee. No starting tight end for the Rams tonight either as they entered COVID protocol. So this is a disastrous blow for this Rams team as they head into tonight's game. Now, it would make the win even more special for the Rams because it'd be a platform, it'd be to quote Jerry Jones from a few weeks ago, it would be a hallmark victory for the Los Angeles Rams because you're on the road, you're without 2 of your best players. And if Matthew Stafford won this game, it would be one of the biggest victories of his career. They should make the playoffs in the NFC because it's terrible. Likely a team's going to make it with a sub 500 record. But this is a game where the Rams need to win it, and they should win it. You're playing, they need to win this game even with, losing some key pieces. You're not in a position where you can lose games here. The Cardinals have been fantastic all year. You look at Los Angeles, they're 8-4. You don't want to be 8-5 because San Francisco's within a game of you, and you play again later this year. So we'll see what happens there. But tough news today, and really down the stretch in the NFC, can Arizona hold on to that top spot? They got the Rams tonight. That's not an easy game. Then Arizona plays the Lions. Well, that's a good game. That's a game you want in your schedule. Then they host the Colts. Not an easy game. The Colts are the 3rd most sneaky team in the AFC. Cardinals then go to the Cowboys. Again, not an easy game, and they finish their season hosting the Seahawks. So who knows how that goes? But so NFC top half loaded, and you look right now, the Washington football team occupies the final wildcard spot at 6-7. Also at 6-7, we have Minnesota, Philly, Atlanta, and New Orleans. All those teams are still in the mix. That's how log jammed it is. Philly and Washington play this week. So that's interesting. A team's going to put themselves in a better position. But you got Atlanta this coming week plays the 49ers. That's not an easy game as they head on the road. You got Saints at Bucks, Vikings versus Bears. So to me, the best team out of all that bunch, I said Philly was going to make the playoffs a few weeks ago. I'm going to stick by that. I think they'll beat Washington. I think Taylor Heineke was banged up in the game, so it might be Kyle Allen moving forward. But I said Philly make the playoffs with Jalen Hurts. I'm going to stick with that opinion, but I do think Minnesota is the best team out of that bunch. However, I don't trust them to say, I don't trust them at all. They play stupid football. They have games wrapped up, and then they just change their game plan for no particular reason, and it blows up in their face. So we'll see how that goes. But NFL Monday Night Football tonight should be a blast. And can't wait to watch that matchup in just a few hours. There's some news in sports today, and what's disappointing today is the news is that teams are shutting down because of COVID, positive tests. And the Calgary Flames have been shut down through at least Thursday. So they're scheduled to play Chicago tonight, the only game in the NHL this evening. That has been postponed. So they're supposed to play, I believe, Toronto. They're supposed to play tomorrow night as well. They're supposed to play Toronto Thursday. All those postponed. So trouble there in Calgary. I think they had 7 positive cases overnight. And then in the NBA, the Chicago Bulls have also been postponed their next 2 games because I think they have 11 guys on the COVID protocol list, including DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, their best players. They couldn't dress a roster. They were scheduled to play the Toronto Raptors on Thursday, so that game has been postponed. To think we're almost 2 years into this pandemic and we're still having these positive cases, that teams are being shut down, that our world, so many rules, and it's crazy to me that this is still happening. It's almost, you kind of think, how the fuck is this still happening? Believe me, everybody's sick of it, but I think COVID might just push me over the edge. But we got to get through it. And there's also the Olympic. Alex Pietrangelo came out today and he said, if it's true, because the NHL is having a hard time getting the rules from Beijing about what's happening when it comes to the Olympics and quarantines. But he said, if we're over there for a 2-week tournament and I test positive and I guess another 3 weeks, he's got 4 kids under 3.5. That, he can't be away from his children that long. So, kudos to him for coming out and speaking on it, because, there's guys in different positions. Connor McDavid, I think he has a girlfriend, but again, okay, you have a girlfriend. Alex Pietrangelo has responsibility. He has 4 children. His wife is not going to Beijing. His children aren't going. To be away from them for over a month, that's a big commitment, and you really can't do it. And to think you go over there and play in the Olympics and you're stuck in a hotel room for a long period of time, that is a scary thought. I wouldn't want to be put in that position, because it just doesn't sound good. You're stuck in a hotel room in China where, well, first of all, I wouldn't trust that I could get home safely, because if you've been seeing what's happening in China lately, that can become Mexico, where you just wake up and you're dead. So again, I'm not getting in political here, but Calgary gets on the COVID protocol list. It's almost a blessing because they've lost 4 in a row. Edmonton has lost 5 in a row, and they're struggling for the first time. They can't score goals right now. They're getting shut down. Teams are playing them tight checking. Saturday night they play Carolina. Carolina is one of the most sound defensive teams in hockey. I think you can make the argument they are the most sound defensive team in hockey. And Edmonton only had 23 shots against Frederik Andersen. You get that many shots, you're not going to win. Plus, you look at what did they do? What did Carolina do? Jacob Slavin played 30 minutes on Saturday. 30. The guy is a stud. You can't slow the guy down. And but this team's so good defensively. They tight check, they don't give you space. But he plays, Ian Cole, a veteran defenseman who's, you could say he's bottom half. He's played 25 minutes and 50 seconds. Slavin played 29:49. Still coming back from injury is Brett Pesce. He didn't play. That's why Slavin had to play a ton, but they find a way to win the game. And Edmonton's they played Boston. That's another tight checking team. They don't win that game. Then you look last week, they played Minnesota. Similar style, physical, grind. They play a similar playoff mentality. There's a connection to the games that they're losing here. They're losing to teams who they lost to LA. Okay, you could say that's an aberration. But they're losing to teams that play that physical style. And I think this is the point that John Tortorella was making. Everybody freaked out. Is that Connor McDavid is going to have to change his game a little. He's not going to have to turn into, Tom Wilson, go out there and kill people on the ice, but be sound defensively. Make smart decisions. So that I just look at Edmonton and it's starting to catch up with them. They're playing really good hockey. Draisaitl, McDavid were breaking records. They've hit a skid here. They play Toronto tomorrow. It's a tough team to get a skid off against. Toronto's, even though Toronto's played a lot of hockey lately, they look tired to me. Again, you're not going to do much. You got to play. But they look tired. They went on a road trip to LA, and then they come home and play 3 games. Goaltending's been really challenge lately. Jake Muzzin looks terrible, and then Justin Hall is not a top 4 defenseman, but they have him playing there. When Muzzin is out to lunch, Justin Hall is even worse. So one thing you do know is Toronto can score, and this might be the perfect game for Edmonton because Toronto doesn't play that type of style that Minnesota does or a Carolina does, because those 2 teams don't have the skill that Toronto does. Does Toronto have better goaltending and better? I wouldn't say Toronto's got better defensemen. I think I like Edmonton's D-core. I'm sure Morgan Riley, I like Darnell Nurse is better than Morgan Riley. But tomorrow night's game will be interesting, and we'll preview it here tomorrow. We'll talk more about the hockey scene, and it's been a minute, but we'll talk about the NHL tomorrow. There's some NBA storylines I want to get into, including Damian Lillard and Portland as they continue to spiral and lose games. We'll touch on the COVID news. We'll break down Monday Night Football tomorrow, see who comes out on top this evening in the Cardinals against the Rams. Talk about the World Junior roster, kind of touch on some of my players where I see them fitting in, kind of their roles on this team. So lots happening. We'll be back tomorrow. Hope you guys enjoyed the pod today. Glad to be back. Good to be talking to all of you. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll talk soon.